Hello, everyone. Steve Hartline with you here on Mix TV. It's our Conversations series, and we're back here at Lee University in their Lee Communications television studio. And I am joined by 5 gentlemen who I have invited here today to come and talk about some things, some issues we'll get into in a second. They all have issues. But this is for also Mix 104.1's Southeast Tennessee Woman magazine. This either is a panel or it is a bad episode of Sally Jesse Raphael. I'm not sure which it is, but I want them all to introduce themselves. I want to begin down here with Stephen, and just introduce yourselves to the congregation.
Well, my name is Stephen Beasley, and I'm married to Amy Beasley. We've been married about 10 years, and we have 3 children and 1 on the way.
That's right. Congratulations.
Yes, I'm Jerome Hammond, and I'm married to Vanessa. We have 4 children, and we've been married 21 years.
Why did it sound like you were not going to use your last name? Are you that confident in this podcast?
We can't know where this is going to go just yet, so I can't be too cautious at this point, Steve.
I mean, this may air in Cuba after midnight at some point in the future. You never know. All right, go right ahead.
I'm Richie Hughes. I'm married to Stephanie Hughes for 21 years. We have 2 children, 2 teenage daughters, and I thought I was coming here to help my business. So, full disclaimer, nothing I say matters.
All right, we're going to go to the back row.
Hi, I'm Roger Pickett. I am married to Cindy Pickett, and we've been married for 31 years.
And
we
you
have 2 girls, Lindsay, 27, and Kristen, 22.
And you have been warned by your wife as well, is that right?
I have been. I got to watch what I say today.
All right.
And I'm Robert Bradney, and I'm married to Jill, and we've been married, this is our 25th wedding anniversary, and we have 1 daughter, Lily, and she's 12.
Who's been married the longest in the panel? I heard 20, how long?
Like 31 years. 31.
31 years, so 31 years of marriage, which we will make sure you get to 32 after this panel today. What's if you had to tell a guy getting married, let's say sometime soon, what's the key to being married for 31 years in your estimation?
I guess, serious answer. Commitment to the marriage. When you go into it, for better or worse, as they say, you're gonna have to stick it out. I've probably shared with you my little Ferris wheel scenario that I think it's like. The marriage, there's ups and downs in everything, in every relationship, and marriage especially. And so as it goes up, the ride's fun when you're on top and stuff, but it does come back down when it gets to the bottom. And I've told you this, I've told other friends about it. But when it goes down, you have the opportunity to stay on or get off. And if you'll just stay on, it will go back up. And that's.
See, I thought it was, you said a roller coaster, but it's actually no, Cindy, he said a Ferris wheel. Who's next in order of, so 31, Robert Bradney, 25 years. What do you think?
25 years. To me, communication, be able to talk and share things with your spouse, and funny enough, that's what I call my wife. She is my spouse. But we talk through everything. We start the day trying to talk and share. We come home from work, we try to share. And being older, we adopted our daughter when 11 years ago, and being the age that we had already kind of set our path for how we lived, and then you bring in a child and it kind of upsets that path. So communication has to be stronger and better and continue and share, and then I consider us best friends. One of my most favorite things of when I met Jill for the first time, our first date was a 2-hour drive from Cleveland to Murfreesboro, and I knew that at the moment of silences, neither one of us felt uncomfortable.
Was this her choice to take this drive? Did she know she was taking this drive,
She
Robert?
said yes. She said yes. But that comfortable time when there was that downtime and we weren't talking, we both felt comfortable. And so communication, and even knowing that there's a good, solid communication even when you're not talking.
I've heard the silences, the moments of silence are key, because you don't feel like you just have to, it's kind of a natural thing. Which Jerome's used to a lot of silence around him. Now, who's next, Richie or Jerome?
We're tied. Richie and I are tied for a week. Okay, I've got a marriage by a week. 21 years, so we're both. So thinking about what these guys have already said, and communication is tied to my answer. And I think all of us feel a huge challenge when, the question of what is the key, because of course it's very complex. There are a lot of things that go into it. So my piece of the answer will be that, over the 21 years, there have been a lot of changes in myself, in Vanessa, in our expectations, in what we think life is going to be about, and how things work. And it's a commitment and it's communication related to where am I now? Where is she now? Who is Vanessa at 25? Who is she at 30? Who is she at 35? In some
Probably want to
ways,
stop there. That's fine. Yeah,
in some ways, it's exactly the same. In other ways, it's quite different. And so I think this commitment to understanding who is that person and what do they need from me at each one of those stages, that's something that I don't know how well you can understand that going into a marriage, whether you're 25 years old or 30 when you get married. That's the person you're marrying at that point, but they're going to be different 5, 10, 20 years from now. And so as you go along, making sure you know who you are, who they are, and what is the marriage at any given point. I think that's a huge part of it, in my experience at least.
And those changes go back, go back to how big the decision is initially, that you marry the right person, for those who have not made that commitment yet.
And whatever that means, you marry the right person. What I mean by that is, what did any of us know at 23 or 25 years of age? I think we all look back and think, whoa, holy cow, did I get unbelievably lucky in a lot of ways, because I didn't know half of what I needed to know. So I think we all perhaps, I keep taking shelter in the crowd, trying to believe. I think we all look back and think, wow, man, how in the world did I make such a great decision? Because marrying that right person, I think we're probably a little afraid of that expression, right? Because that puts all the pressure on that moment right there. Make the right decision, and everything will go well. And the truth is, no, man, it's all the time a reassessing of who you are and where am I, how do I need to change, and what ways do I need to stay the same so that my spouse is having a great life. I think that's a part of it. What does Vanessa need from me to have a great life? And that changes at every stage, as I've said.
Richie?
I think for us, after the physical attraction and the newness wears off, and you're looking at after that first 6 months of the honeymoon, and 21 years later, I think for us it's been a conscious choice to wake up every day and choose to love, because we don't, a lot of distractions and in an ADD world, and I'm adult ADD, I admit it. So I have to get up every day and choose to say, this is the one I'm going to spend my life with. I'm going to be faithful to her today. I'm going to love her today. I hope she will choose to love me today. Physically, we all change, our attributes change. So, you have to make that conscious choice every day to get up and say, I'm in this for the long haul. I'm going to take the good with the bad. I think as Roger put it, the Ferris wheel example, and, we all go through those downs. But there's more ups than there's downs. So I think one thing that was critical in our development as a young couple, and there's an age difference with Stephanie and myself, so we pray every night, and I think there's such a thing as the power of touch. We'll hold hands or embrace or somehow we'll physically have a point of contact. And we literally pray a prayer for 21 years as we go to bed every night. And a lot of times understand that there are nights that I need to be on the couch or in another room because we're not happy with each other. Sometimes you go to bed and you don't like each other, but you got to choose to love each other. You don't like what was said or done that day. You've had a disagreement, but that point of contact that we've made, kind of a resolution that we're going to do this every night, no matter how much you like me or dislike me or how good or bad the day's gone. And we literally pray, Lord, help us to love each other more tomorrow than we did today. And I think that's been a sustaining factor in our 21 years.
Excellent. Stephen Beasley, what do you have to say about that?
We just crossed 10 years recently, so nowhere near, 21 or 32 or anything like that. I'm hoping you make it to 32. I think a couple of things from my few years of wisdom, I guess. First would be who you are as a husband or a wife in your marriage says a lot about just who you are as a person. And so you you end up making a choice, whether for good or bad, whatever spot you are on the Ferris wheel, that you've made a decision really before yourself and before God, first of all. And so whether it's a covenant or just the fact that you're going to love your spouse because that's what you're going to do, regardless of their response or their action, it has a lot to do with who you are as a person. So understanding that. And then the key for us, I guess for the last 10 years, has just really been enjoying being married. And with 3 kids, that's changed. And I'm sure it will change again over time. But just trying to find the common good threads in a lot of things, and really enjoying the experiences we have together, enjoying learning one another, understanding what makes Amy tick, and hopefully she enjoys learning what makes Stephen Beasley tick. But we've just learned to enjoy each other a good bit. And that looks a lot of different ways at different times. Sometimes that's understanding space. Sometimes that's understanding hobbies and fun and activities. Sometimes that's just understanding emotions. But we've just learned to enjoy each other. And I hope that when we're 85 years old and her cooking's not great anymore, maybe, and, physical attributes change for all of us. And, the things that we could go do, we can't go do anymore. I hope when we're 85 looking back that we still have great conversation. And just enjoy the life we've spent together and looking forward to tomorrow.
One reason I picked these guys, these are all very close friends of mine, and I thought they were a great differential, I guess, in careers and in life, and they're all very busy people. And so the next question, here we have a Robert Bradney, general manager of Bender Realty, Roger Pickett, owner of Mermaid Mattress Factory and Showroom. I say it every morning. Our buddy Richie Hughes, who owns the Holiday Inn Express. You have Jerome Hammond, who's a Lee University vice president. You have Stephen Beasley, who's the media director at First Baptist Cleveland, largest church in our community. They are all extremely busy, which is another reason I'm glad they did this. I want to talk about what we hear and has been popularized as the so-called work-life balance. And so you guys, you already some giggles here because it is a real thing. And I think so many people that will see this will say, I may not do what you guys do, but I am busy. I'm working 40, 50, 40 hours, 50, 60, whatever that is, and I'm trying to be married, and I have children. So I'll tell you what, I want to begin with Jerome Hammond. So speak to that for a second. What do you have left for marriage after you're traveling and you're working and this university is growing as rapidly as it is?
Well, it's a big question, and it's a tough question to answer, fully in the format. So I won't. So let me give a piece of it. It's a challenge all the time because it has to do with who you are as a person and what your needs are in terms of performance and how you want your life to go and how you want to be evaluated at the end of that life. And it also has to do with your spouse's needs. So I find that it's always a challenge. I wish I could sort of make a decision, put it on autopilot, and it never needs to be reevaluated. But what I've found over time is that's not the case. It's a very frequent reevaluating. Where is Vanessa? Where are the needs of our children right now? And where am I in terms of professional development and kind of the arc of my career? It's always a challenge. I think men, we certainly are evaluated by our society, how we perform, what is our title, what do we earn. That's a very real pressure, I think, for all men in terms of feelings of self-worth. And so it's always trying to figure out, am I doing that, right, in terms of what's important? I've got one life to live. So does Vanessa. Okay, I want to achieve certain things. So does she. And then it's a bringing together and balancing what does she need and what do I need. But I don't know how well I've answered the question, but I guess my summary statement would be it's a daily challenge.
Yeah. So it's a constant checking in almost. Is that kind of what I'm getting from that?
No question, right. You're always making sure you're communicating with your spouse. There's times in all of our careers, whether it's seasonal, whether it's annual, whether it stretches over 3 or 4 or 5 years, where there's a lot more pressure and you're going to have to be at work a lot longer. So for me, my annual cycle is some months I'm there longer hours than I'm going to be at other times. And so it's coming to an understanding, okay, sweetheart, I'm going to be out of the house before the sun comes up, and I won't be home before the sun goes down. It won't last forever. It's a couple of months. I'll see you in the spring. And so you got to make sure that you're talking that through, and all the practical matters of who's going to take care of the children and how we're going to get them to gym class and to soccer practice. But then in the larger way, I think you're also asking that philosophical question, how do you deal with that? And going back to the answer I gave in the other question, it's seasonal, and you got to be talking through it and making sure you're on the same page.
Goes back to, I believe Robert said, communication. Stephen Beasley, balancing work life and married life.
This has been a struggle, just being honest. I think when you get married, each one of you lives your own life and used to your own pace and schedule and all that type of thing, and throw some kids into that mix, and it can be fun. I read a book trying to figure this out called Choosing to Cheat by Andy Stanley, and maybe the only cheating we talk about in this whole panel. But basically the idea is that nothing ever fully balances. And so your time, your work, your marriage, all those things never fully balance. So then you just have to ask the question, which one are you going to cheat? Are you going to cheat your work a little bit for the sake of your marriage? You're going to cheat your marriage for the sake of your work? You're going to cheat your kids for the sake of your marriage? You're going to cheat your work for the sake of your kids? And you really just come to the place where you decide, I'm going to prioritize some things. I'm going to make some choices. And at the end of the day, or for this season, maybe as Jerome was kind of talking, I'm gonna cheat this area for the sake of this other one. And so the balance doesn't have to happen every day as much as it has to happen in terms of priorities. And I think once those get established, the choosing to cheat decision becomes a lot easier. But that's a lot of wisdom from Andy Stanley. It's worked great for the last several years since I've read that book. And I won't tell you which thing I'm cheating today, but but that's how I've kind of rectified that in my brain as far as what you do. But I don't think it ever really balances.
Robert, how do you do it?
Well, I would say that for Jill and I, being a retail background, what I've worked all my life, long hours, weekends, nights, and that continues in my role today with agents that I manage, and they may have a question at 9 o'clock at night, and that phone rings, and I've got to answer it. I mean, I've got a responsibility there. I think Jill and I look back and we lean on how we were raised. We were very fortunate that both of us had stay-at-home moms and dads that worked, and so we know that when we got married, we knew that in our having children, we both wanted careers. And so you have to think that through, and you have to think that balance. Having a child at the age that we had, and I'm 52, Jill's 52, and having a 12-year-old child, we really want to take advantage of all the time that we have with our child because of that age difference. We're experiencing now death of parents and things like that. So the continual balance day, and like I said, it's not a continuous balance, it's day in, day out balance. It's take one day at a time, make the time, give the time, help each other out. I mean, we have to do that. I mean, Jill has a role, I have a role, and we want our child to learn those roles and accept those roles and realize that balance, she's as much a part of our life as everything else, but then there is that level of responsibility as well.
Roger, 31 years. You have mattress stores all over this area. Your wife is also in the business with you as well. Does that change anything?
Well, I guess fortunately and unfortunately, we do work together. So that's kind of a pressure too, living it at work and at home afterwards. Our younger daughter, when she was younger, she used to always try to break us up as far as conversation, say, quit talking about work, quit talking about work. Yeah. But we bring it home, and that's not always a healthy thing. But we have been able to live a balanced life. In fact, one of my side partnerships, a little business on the side, the partnership is called Balanced Life Properties. So, so we take that for real. And we've been blessed. We've been fortunate to be able to do so, especially now, because there is going to come a time when kids are gone, and I guess we're the only empty nesters here now, which when I couldn't imagine that when the kids were younger, talking about running around to soccer games and volleyball games and softball games, and we did that for years and years and years, and then and it was just dreaded once they were thinking about them leaving the nest, but gosh, even our kids today say, y'all seem so happy now. And it really is a new phase. It's a new refreshing of the marriage again and stuff. So you have that to look forward to. But balancing it between work, I mean, we both, and especially I believe Cindy works harder than me, and she'd probably tell you that as well.
Oh, she does, yeah.
And but we work hard and we play hard. So we get our time to travel, and we get our time when we're back at work. We work, So it's just a balance.
And so you being the only one on this panel that your children are not in the home anymore. Jerome talked about seasons of marriage. So you've kind of had to go back to before there were children, as far as in your approach to the marriage.
Kind of crimps our style now when Kristen comes home. I mean, we're just not used
She's
to it
a
anymore.
Carson Newman, yeah.
She is, but we enjoy her. Believe me.
She
comes
used to
home.
leaving that bedroom door open. And, it's very hard to,
That's another interview show, actually, Dr. Hammond. I don't know. But Roger, yeah, I mean, so it's a different deal then. Another season, as Jerome said.
Yeah, it is, and it's been good so far. We more than enjoyed it, and I tell everybody that have younger kids that are still at home, enjoy this time. I tell you this, enjoy this time because it goes quickly. I mean, you wouldn't believe how quick it seemed like it came and went.
I believe it totally. Richie, you're busy. All the things that you're involved with. Where does the balance come in, or does it?
I don't think there's really such a thing as how you do that. You get asked that a lot when you are busy, and I think it's different for each person. But a couple things I've learned is being where you are, and what I mean by that is when I go home, what I've tried to learn is that when I go home, I don't wind down, I wind up. Because all day long I'm working or doing whatever, but when I go home, I don't get in my recliner and turn on ESPN and tune them out. I wind up. Tell me about your day. My daughters, what happened at school? Did you have tests? What took place? I asked my wife, what did you do today? So I think it's the reverse of what we perceive going home should be. I kind of wind up. I'm energized when I get home. People will say, well, I'm so tired. Well, I'm energized because I get to go home and be with the people that I love. So being where you are, and I call it maximizing moments. I get really frustrated when, we go home in this day of social media and all the different things, and I say media, M-E, capital, media, and they're all on Instagram or Twitter or whatever going on, and everybody's on their phones, and I'm like, put it down and let's talk. Let's have a moment, maximize these moments. I get real frustrated when we have that moment in time and we're not on the same page, because it's kind of like we're wasting valuable time here. Let's enjoy each other. Let's not worry about what else is going on in the world and who did this or who did that, and let's just enjoy each other. So, just little buzz things that I've written down through the years of winding up, not winding down, and maximizing moments and being opportunistic in what we're doing when we do get home, and being where you are. And I had an old coach tell me when I got married, he said, put down the remote, take your eyes off ESPN Sports Center, and look her in the eye when she talks. And I think that's been one of the most valuable things I could do is when she opens her mouth, I turn and I look, and I'm, I've got to, because I am ADD, if I'm watching that, I'm not hearing her. So I've got to zone in on what she's trying to say to me and try to be a part, because the way I look at it is if she's verbalizing it, then it's important to her. It may not seem all that significant at the time, but there's a whole lot of things I tell her that aren't significant to her either. And she's giving me that ear, and I need to give her the same thing.
Okay, we're going to kind of switch gears here a little bit. I want to talk about fatherhood, and all of these guys have children, and I guess the question would be, and I think I'm going to begin with Stephen on this one actually. The question would be, okay, so you're married. All of you have been married for 10 years or longer. Children come into the equation. You become a father. How did that change you, and how does that impact your marriage? But not even that. There's more just yourself, you. What did fatherhood do to Stephen Beasley?
I think the first thing fatherhood did to me was I learned how to get by on about 2 hours of sleep.
I'm still learning.
Yeah, we're still figuring that out. Probably the not to over spiritualize this, but I had an entirely different understanding of how God cares for me personally after realizing the way you feel toward your own children. So you think about those verses in the Bible where God talks about, how much do you like to give good gifts to your children? Surely I can do better than that. I'm God. That type of idea. And so it gave me a different perspective of being the protector, being the leader in the home. It gave me an entirely different viewpoint on how emotionally involved you have to be, and how God probably cares a lot about every thought we think. The Bible says He knows every thought we think before we think it, the number of hairs on our head. My son doesn't have a clue how many hairs are on his head, but I could take a pretty wild guess, So I guess overall, perspective changed with God more than anything. And then just as a father, realized that I could love a child maybe more than anything that I've ever loved before. So this was a really impressive time. And, of course, we're coming up on number 4 in January. So every time there's a newness and a uniqueness that happens. And so it's probably one of the most enjoyable parts about being married.
Being the father of a big family, being the father of 4 children, may be different than the father of 2, 1. What's the difference there, do you think? I mean, because now you're spreading yourself a little even. You're cutting the pie a little more.
Yeah, it's another choosing the cheat thing, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I think being the father of 4 compared to 2 or 1. When we had 1, when you have that one child is kind of your whole world, and you add 1 to it, and it's like, wow, look at those 2 together. That's pretty exciting. And then you add a third one, and the uniqueness of their personality. So we have a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and a 2-year-old, and we love watching the 2-year-old interact with the 5 and the 7-year-old because it's almost like those bouncy balls and watching those things happen. And I think it's just a lot of fun. The more folks we have around, the more exciting the house is, and really watching the relationships deepen. We're still figuring it out when it comes to being a father of more than 2 or 3. So it's a pretty cool time, but still kind of watching and learning quite a bit.
So, Robert, you've been married the longest here, is that right? No, Roger has, but you're second.
Yes.
Okay. You made the decision to adopt.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Talk about that decision, why you did that.
Well, it's go along with what Steve said there too. It's God makes a plan for us, and so our plan was that we could not have our own children, and God led us to adopt. And I think that God led us to adopt just 1 for a reason. I came from a family where I had 2 older sisters. Jill had a brother, that kind of thing. So it's a different perspective for both of us dealing with a single child. But as far as placing in her life, it gave us a new meaning to unconditional love. It gave us the opportunity to see the level of commitment that you do have to give to something. And I say, based on our age, we always kind of throw that in there. We felt like that was the right thing for us at the right time, at the right place. So I say it's a God thing for us. Totally, it was meant to be.
How has it changed you as a person?
Oh, I've never thought I would say some of the things I would say about being a protective father of a little girl. Having 2 sisters and growing up with sisters, but then having that girl that you've got to, that you're responsible for and that you've got to lead and protect, it changes your life. I mean, it just makes you realize things are different. I work with people every day and trust people every day, but when it comes to that child, it's a whole different level that you would ever expect. But then I think of what we're learning from her too. I embrace that. I love that. And then in raising a child in today's society, that's a very difficult challenge looking back at how we were all raised in the time that we were, and then the challenges that are out there for children today. They learn more now. They're a heck of a lot smarter than we are today than we were at that age. So it's challenging every single day.
Richie, Richie Hughes, fatherhood.
Well, again, I don't claim to have all the answers. I'm trying, and I've read the book Stephen mentioned and another book called Halftime by Bob Buford, and talks about when you reach the halfway point, which that's different for all of us. But in the book, it's in the 40s, and I actually had that experience, and just a change of what I felt like was my calling or your career, whatever you want to call it. I choose to call it a calling because it is ministerially, but even in ministry, sometimes we are so out of balance, and I think it's interesting that Andy wrote the book, because he talks a little bit about Charles, his dad. I came to a point in life where my calling preceded and was more prioritized than what I believe the Bible says, and that is that I'm supposed to be the priest of my home. So I was putting the ministry before me being priest of my home. And being priest of your home, to me, means being a husband to Stephanie and a father to Hallie and Kaylee. And then I think that the calling or career has to come third. And I got that out of whack. We all have. I think at some point in time, probably all of us on this panel and everybody out there, because, you think, well, I'm in my prime earning years. I got to put away for the future. And but I had an experience where I started missing soccer games, the things Roger talked about. And my children, they don't care that I'm doing this to pay the bills. They want to know why I wasn't there. So everybody can't do what I was able to do, but I made a total change and a total shift, and I don't feel any less of a man by that. I feel like I'm more of a man because I am home more often. And those of us that have lived that travel jet set all over I was back and forth to California all the time, and you call and your kid tells you they scored a goal and you're not there. And I just think that I had a real awakening, and God gave me an opportunity to move back to Cleveland from Atlanta and be a part of my wife's life and be a part of my children's lives that maybe I didn't have where I was before. And I don't discredit or resent what I did. I just think that I'm in a real sweet season of life right now. I think Stephen said it's seasonal, and we all go through those seasons. But I just would encourage anybody that has the opportunity to, don't miss anything, because those years are gone. I've got a year and a half left with my oldest, and then she's going to be at school. I've got 4 years left with my other ones. Roger's an empty nester. So, I don't know how to process all that, and I'm learning on the go. But I know that I'm going to be the priest of my home first, and my calling and career will come second.
And that's that we talked about earlier, that work-life balance. I mean, that really goes back to that. Roger, fatherhood, what did it do to you?
Greatest thing in the world. After getting married, I should prioritize that, right? But
I guarantee you Cindy will watch this, I guarantee you.
But it was the greatest thing in the world, and in that too, we have always tried to remain balanced and stuff. We were again blessed enough to be able to catch almost every game and everything like that. So I mean, I'm so fortunate to have been able to do that. Even Kristen's college career, playing volleyball at Carson Newman last year, we didn't miss a single game, no matter where it was. So we just always have made it a priority to do that. Again, you got to work harder when you get home. You got to put in more hours when you're home. But you're able to do that. But fatherhood was a great thing. I'm so happy that my girls have turned out the way they have, and I think raising them in a church is the big key to that, and just guiding them in that direction and stuff. And they have that today still instilled in them and stuff. So I'm proud of them for that, and so it's been great.
Your oldest daughter got married, what, 2 years ago?
2.5 almost.
2.5 almost. Married Ben McChesney, Lindsay, who teaches at Walker Valley. So how are you a father now to a married daughter? How has that changed it? And none of these guys. So you're the man here.
Thank goodness they're still in town. I don't think that's going to stay that way forever. I think they're ready to spread their wings and go on elsewhere. But many people ask me, well, how are the kids doing? I don't know. I haven't talked to him this week, and so they're busy, and I try, well, have you heard from Lindsay yet? No, they're busy, leave them alone, not, I hear that at home. So, but I do get to spend some time with both of them, but not as much as you'd like to. We do try to take at least one vacation together a year and stuff like that. So, but at least they're in town. We have the opportunity to go by, drop by or whatever. And, so it's different. It's different because, and sometimes you can't wear your feelings on your sleeve to where, well, gosh, they didn't come by and see me today or whatever, but they do what they can when they're able to.
Did you have that understanding in the beginning? My mother said to me, I'll never drop in on you. Of course she did. She needs to repent. But did you have some kind of a talk like that? With Lindsay, hey, I'm not going to do X. I'm not going to,
I probably heard it through the grapevine that wasn't a good idea to just drop in at any certain time. And we don't abuse that whatsoever. But I do from time to time, especially if I know she's there by herself or something, her and the dog are there, I'll drop in on them or something. But otherwise, we talk regularly, but not as often as you'd like.
Jerome, fatherhood?
Yeah. It's interesting hearing this stage. Vanessa and I, so we have twin boys and then we have 2 girls. And early on, Vanessa and I would talk about, what is the goal? What are we going to try to get to in this parenting thing? By the way, let me say my initial emotion when the boys were born wasn't, as I hear some fathers describe, love and almost an epiphany of eternity. And this is sort of the... Mine was intense vulnerability, I have to say. That was predominantly my emotion in the first 24 hours. That these 2 guys, I've got to get to adulthood, be responsible, thoughtful, productive adults, and what a task that was. And so I do remember the first 24 hours almost being physically ill at that responsibility, I have to say. But Vanessa and I, when the boys particularly were young, would talk about what is our philosophy, what are we going to try to do. And our goal was to try to produce adults that, A, we wanted to be around. I think every guy on the stage would know what I mean by that. It might seem automatic. What's your child? Of course, let me assure you, not necessarily. So can we produce an adult that we would want to be around? And then a second big goal was an adult that wants to come back around to our home. And if you know what I mean, it's interacting with them throughout their childhood in a way that you're moving them toward responsible, productive, thoughtful adulthood, and all what that means at 2, what it means at 5, how you're trying to, in a thoughtful way, give them more and more of their life, give them more and more of their decisions. And sometimes pushing their life to them, saying, you've got to make that decision, and letting them practice and feel, what does it mean to make a decision? What does it mean to take ownership? But then also to behave in ways that, when they're married, they will still want to come around. So Vanessa and I would remind each other, let's treat them as though they have choices, because one day they will have choices. So it was trying to bear in mind that responsibility, that to the degree that we were able, we wanted to try to produce adults that the world would say, hey, thank you very much. And that's still our goal. So I have to say, as the boys are seniors at Cleveland High,
wow,
tremendous gratification. We're very early in the game, I understand, but where they are right now, we're tremendously proud of them. And I have to say, there's a great amount of gratification at the young men that they seem to be right now and what they're doing with their lives. Because of that, it sounds really kind of cold perhaps and only task-oriented, not much like parenting. But setting that goal and saying, okay, let's behave accordingly. This is our goal down here. When they're 18, this is the kind of young men we want. How should we behave when they're 2, 5, 7, 9, 12? And so here they are, seniors, and we're very gratified at the kind of young men that they are.
What are the ages again of your children?
Mine are 17 with the twins, and then the girls are 11 and 8.
So this is quite a...
This is a long train. You're right. We got one at Arnold, we got one at Cleveland Middle, and 2 at Cleveland High. That's
wow, that's a dichotomy. All right, we're going to sum it up now, and I want to go back through the panel, and I want you, Robert's already laughing, I want you to, in a sentence or two, you know, what would you like to say about marriage, father? What's the key? What do you think the true key is? And you may have already said it, but kind of sum it up for us in maybe a sentence or two. I'm going to start with Richie, and I tell you, we'll just work our way through the panel. Roger, thanks God he's last. All right, Richie, go ahead.
Simple is better. I think Paul writes in Ephesians to be kind to one another. I think kindness is the best word that I would use for a marriage. Is just be kind to one another. Be complimentary of each other. Treat each other with love and respect. Dr. Emerson Eggerich's book, Love and Respect. Men want respect, women want love, but the best word I could describe and what we try to do with our marriage is just be kind to one another.
Dr. Hammond.
I think thinking is such a huge part of it. We place so much emphasis, particularly in the early parts and when we're deciding who we think might be our lifelong partner. Feeling is such a big part of it, you know. Emotion, do I feel love and that sense of romance? But boy, I think thinking at every stage of the relationship with your spouse and with your children, you know, who am I right now? Who are they? What do they need from me? What do I need? And communicating that. And so I think marriage and parenting is also a thinking person's game.
Stephen.
Still figuring this out, but I think just to sum it up, in our case, I think our strategy is to enjoy time together, just a lifetime together. And I think the rest of that looks a lot like understanding more about who you are, making decisions accordingly, to focus on your spouse and on your family. Obviously, letting God speak into that as much as possible. And so maybe there's some flexibility that comes into play too, but really just making a conscious effort to enjoy the situation that God has placed you in, that we've chosen to be in, and taking great pleasure in being there, some focused attention. So just enjoy being married. It's not that hard.
Kindness, thought, joy. Robert.
Trust and friendship. I think for the balance for us is that we totally trust each other. There is no jealousy between us no matter what. And then our friendship is undying. Just an undying friendship.
Wonderful. Roger Pickett.
Well, Robert stole my trust thunder there, but I fail at almost everything about the marriage, but at the same time, we trust each other the most, you know, and that's what binds us together. I'm the worst communicator both at home and at work. She'll tell you so. You know, I have a terrible time looking her in the eye when she's talking to me, and you know I'll miss half that because I also am ADD. But we just trust each other both at home and family and business and everything, and I don't know what I'd do without her.
What a great way to stop. I am very indebted to these gentlemen for taking time to do this today here on Mix TV. This, guys, sadly or happily, will live forever in this form. Thank you very much once again to Stephen Beasley, Dr. Jerome Hammond, Richie Hughes, Robert Bradney, and Roger Pickett. And I'm Steve Hartline. Thank you very much for joining us. Talk to you soon.